Today we're talking buzz baits. We're gonna give you guys a quick rundown on buzz baits, the best time to fish them, and how to fish them. We're gonna make this super simple. Buzz baits are easily one of my favorite baits to fish. You take this bait, cast it out there, you reel it really fast, the prop spins, and it makes a buzzing noise on top of the water, hence the name buzz bait. Buzz baits are really great for getting an active strike. They really fire those bass up. It's also a search bait, so you can locate fish, and all around it's probably one of the more fun baits to fish when it comes to bass fishing. So let's talk about the ideal situations to fish a buzz bait. Ideally, you guys want to fish topwater in the morning and the evening. Spring and fall, it's a little bit different because the water temperatures are different, the weather is different. So, maybe a rainy day or a cold, cloudy day in the spring or fall, as long as that water temperature is like 50 degrees, you guys should be fine throwing a buzz bait. The only time I would recommend not fishing a buzz bait would be the dog days of summer in the middle of the day where it is just groggy out. Buzz baits are great to fish around cover. You're gonna wanna throw these along the bank, along the sides of weeds, along lily pads, around down logs, down trees, you name it. Just throw a buzz bait around there. Try to keep the buzz bait in those more open water scenarios. The reason that you wanna fish buzz baits in those more open water scenarios is you're gonna be able to cover more water, but you also aren't gonna be able to necessarily fish a buzz bait in heavy cover. The buzz bait needs water cycling through the blade so that it can function properly. A lot of times when you're fishing in weeds or around lily pads or in grass, the buzz bait isn't able to make it through that stuff where the blade ends up getting caught and then the bait doesn't function properly. How do you fish a buzz bait? You essentially are just gonna cast that thing out there right when it hits the water, get on that reel and start cranking it in. I'll share a clip with you guys right here on a little more detail on how to fish one. It's very easy and it's a ton of fun. I caught a massive bass earlier this year on a tree by just throwing a buzz bait along the bank. I feel like they would totally smoke one out in the middle. You gotta get in front of them. Oh, there's one. That's a huge one, dude. That is a mega. This could be my biggest bass ever. I can't weigh it. Like, that's insane. Just like, my gosh. That's probably what, 5'5" at least. So as you guys can see, there's nothing crazy to it. I threw that bait out in front of a bush, and from, my guess is that bass was sitting underneath that structure, came out and just hunted it down and just smashed that buzz bait. So ideally you want to try and keep buzz baits along the bank and along cover. They're a great bait for bass to come out and just ambush. So when it comes to rods that I'm fishing, there's two setups that I like to throw depending on the scenario. So the first setup that I use is when I'm fishing open water and light cover. This setup is going to be a 7'3" medium action rod. I love a rod that's a little bit longer. I'm making longer casts with a buzz bait. I like a long rod, like a 7'2" to like a 7'5" is really great. I like to make long casts down the bank. I prefer a longer rod when it comes to fishing a buzz bait. I like to make long casts down the bank. Now when I'm fishing open water, like just down a grassy bank, I like to use a medium power rod. It's very easy to get excited when you get blown up, and a lot of times what happens is you jack that hook and you pull that buzz bait away from the fish. Having a medium allows me to put a little more load behind the rod, so I'm not exactly just ripping that bait away from that fish. That fish hits it, and when I set that hook, it gives it a little more give. Moving into the reel and the line, I like to use a fast gear ratio reel. Again, it's all about speed. You guys need to keep that bait on top of the water or else it will sink. So having a high gear ratio reel is really gonna benefit you. I recommend going with a 7.3 or higher gear ratio reel. In this particular setup for light cover, I will throw fluorocarbon when it comes to a buzz bait. And then I have my setup that I like to use in heavy cover. This right here is a 7.5 heavy. This rod is lighter than most heavies, but it does have a lot of backbone. So it's not a broomstick, but it is a heavy rod. 7.5 again allows me to make long casts, but the reason that I'm using this setup right here is because I am fishing around heavy cover. I'm talking lily pads,
docks, logs. Now, you guys are probably wondering, well, how is a dock heavy cover? I'm worrying about where this fish is going to blow up and take me into. So for example, lily pads. If I'm fishing along a line of lily pads, fish often will blow up and swim directly into those lily pads. You never really know what direction they're gonna go, and I really wanna make sure I can get that fish away from that stuff or into the boat. So I'm using a heavy, long rod. Again, fast gear ratio reel to keep that bait on top of the water, but this time I am throwing heavier braid. Anything from like a 30 to a 50-pound braid, depending on the scenario, is what I'm throwing. Braid has no stretch and it's all power at the end of the day. So there you guys have it. There's a quick breakdown on buzz baits, how to use them, where to fish them, and what to fish them with. Get out there, they're a lot of fun. It's one of my favorite baits to date to throw, and you're gonna get on a good bite if you learn to fish these guys in the right scenario. Hey, if you guys are curious about learning more about fishing, just consider hitting that subscribe button. Other than that, I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.